Speaking of
Make
Austin,
sure.
he was also on the podium for Media Day, and a lot of the conversation around him, a lot of the questions were around his future in LA. It's not hard to see why Austin, did decline his extension this offseason. He is betting on himself. And, if you're a Lakers fan that actually reads and listens, you'll see that this is very clear what his stance is. He wants to be a Laker. He wants to be in LA. He wants to play for the purple and gold. He also wants to be paid more than a 4-year, $89.2 million extension that is the max that the Lakers could have offered him at that time. I'm not here to throw gas on any fire. I personally don't think there's a lot of smoke around Austin not getting compensated by the Lakers. I think if anything, the Lakers are going to break up with him first and
Mhm.
ship him out, but we could talk about that another time. But I think if he's here, he's going to get paid. They've learned from their mistakes with Caruso, but Austin's doing his thing as a professional. Kwame, Austin Reaves' comments and his media day appearance. Your thoughts?
It's interesting. They talked a lot about Austin, and again, I didn't see too much of him playing basketball. A lot of what I saw of him was playing golf. JJ talked highly about him
Yeah.
and his off-season regimen, how he was again getting his body right, getting in shape, and it sounds like every session that they had with the team where they were running scrimmages or whatever, he was the best player on the floor. So I don't think LeBron was back. I don't think Luka was back. So I think of the locals, Austin Reeves was doing his thing, and as he should on this team. But I think you make some good points about his long-term fit. I think that's something that they're going to continuously evaluate through this season, whether they re-sign him basically for however long he's with the Lakers. They will continue to evaluate his value around the league. And I think, to your point, if they see something that really makes them jump that they think would sweeten the deal to get a more ideal pairing with Luka, I hate to be the guy, but I think the Lakers pull that trigger. As good as Austin Reeves is, a lot of his skill set and abilities are very redundant alongside Luka. Even with LeBron, it's a lot of redundancy in skill set. And he
Yeah.
doesn't make up enough of Luka's weaknesses to then elevate him. In all intents and purposes, he's a poor man's Luka. He'll get you some buckets. He can play make a little bit. He can handle the ball. He can make some tough shots. But again, neither are necessarily playing a great deal of defense or anything like that. Austin gives his effort, of course, but I think there's too many similarities where is this really the ideal pairing of the future? I don't know. Again, his skill set doesn't vary as much. He's not like super athletic, where Kyrie, I think even going back to the Mavericks, Kyrie and Luka, a lot of people had questions around their fit as well. But even though they're both primary offensive playmakers, how they get their baskets is very different. I feel like Luka and Austin are a little similar. And again, you look at the defensive end, there's not one that's like superiorly athletic or shifty or whatever. It's just, Austin just does a lot of things Luka does, just not quite to the same level. So I think to your point, long-term fit will be something that I think the Lakers will continue to evaluate. And if they see a star or somebody that they could throw Austin in the deal and it makes it work, I don't think they would hesitate to do that at this point. But I'm all for what he's going to bring this season. I'm excited. Again, Austin's one of those players where in my absolute wildest dreams, I would have never thought he became the player that he is today. Like thinking about it, and we had this conversation a few months ago or so. We were looking back and I was like, the guy who was on a two-way undrafted player, I never thought would be able to
Yeah.
average 25-5 in the National Basketball Association. Never in my life. I thought at best he peaks at maybe like 16 points a game. And he did this again, especially the second half of the season. He was averaging like it was higher than what he even finished for the season. So he was able to do his thing. So I'm super proud of him. If I understand what the Lakers fandom says when they feel like he's like one of those homegrown guys, like they watched him, they raised him to see how he is today. And there's a lot of pride in wanting to keep that. But, in lieu of a championship, sometimes those hard decisions got to be made. So the future of Austin's to be determined, but we know his role this season. He will be a, third option, scoring option, and he excelled really well in that last year. Especially if one of our main guys goes down or is out or resting or whatever it may be, he can kind of pick up that slack. We saw some really, really big games from Austin in these last couple of years when even LeBron and AD have been down and he's risen to the occasion. I always think that Boston game was crazy. That was crazy. Where he just went out there and he absolutely balled. He can go out there and do his thing. So I'm excited for him. I really think he's going to be a great player for us, but there's a lot of uncertainty in Austin Reeves' future, that's to say the least.
And not us just talking about this. It's so funny. Everybody wanted over the summer to talk about LeBron James possibly playing in Dallas because we're just going to help Dallas create the Lakers in Dallas plus Kyrie. So in any event, I'm still mad at y'all for adding fuel to that. But I'm not going to be honest. Excuse me. I'm going to be honest. Austin said it out of his own mouth. The week that he turned down his extension, he thought that there was a chance that he would be traded. This was coming out of his recent New York Times Athletic article on the possible trade rumors after declining the extension. I thought there was a good chance for like a week after I declined the extension that there was a possibility that I get traded. I mean, it's still a possibility. Yeah, I think we're all acknowledging the current state of affairs of where we're at. I do want to say, though, I totally agree, right? I do think there's some overlap, at the nice way of saying it, between Austin's skill set and what now Luka brings to the table. But what I've seen too much of recently with just roster construction is sometimes we'll say, hey, we are over indexing in one position or this one skill set, and we just have too many of this guy, of this type of player, right? The Lakers would stack small guards, right? You know, over a few years back, for example. But like in this case, I would just hate because we know today we have 3 ball handlers in Luka, LeBron, and AR. LeBron's going to be out of that equation in the next 24 months.
Yeah.
Right. Now looking at Luka and AR as your primary playmakers and ball handlers, I'm going to go, okay, that feels good to me, even if they do have more similar skill set. Figure that out in just staggering and complementary pieces where it makes more sense. But I don't want it to be a situation where, you know, and also you got to see what you bring in for AR, and it's got to be something that is there for Luka. So I guess in that regard, it depends on what you get back. But my point is, I think AR and Luka can coexist on a successful Lakers championship contending team, especially when LeBron decides to hang it up.
I mean, I guess, you know, and like I said, I don't say this is like Austin Reaves can't be a fit. Do I think there's better fits out there? Probably. For the money that he's asking, probably. But I guess what you always have to consider, and this is what the Lakers are going to have to think of long term, and I can't make that decision, you know, it just is what it is. Can you really afford to have 2 non-defenders in your starting lineup or your closing lineup of a championship roster? 2 non-defenders at
and that's
the guard wing position. Can you afford to do that and win championships? You know, that's where they're going to have to take a real long look in the mirror. Again, I don't think you can ever have too much offense. I think, hey, get as many bucket getters as you can get. Like, you know, it is what it is. But that's probably the concern that the Lakers have to look at long term. Can you really be having 2 guys that take up a bulk of your salary cap, neither being plus defenders? I don't know. That's where it gets difficult to me.
Reaves also talks about wanting to be an all-star. He feels that he can definitely put together an all-star worthy caliber season. And when you take a look at the recent list of teams that have sent 3 players or more to the All-Star game, it's a pretty respectful list, right? You know, you got your 2021 Brooklyn Nets, your KD, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. You got your 2020 Boston Celtics, Tatum, Brown, Kemba Walker. Shout out Kemba. Then of course you got your Golden State Warrior death lineups. Minnesota Timberwolves threw 3 out there with Jimmy, Cat, and Wiggins. How about an Anthony Davis-led New Orleans Pelicans with DeMarcus Cousins and Drew Holiday, Kwame? It just goes to show that it is not uncommon to have 3 players represent your team in the All-Star game. I do think when you kind of take a look at these mix of players, there's definitely one guy who is more of the, you know, connective tissue. But then again, a lot of these guys, Tatum, Brown, and Walker, they always trying to put the ball in the bucket. So I think it's definitely possible from a historical standpoint for AR to make an all-star team, because you can already write it in chisel it in stone that Luka and LeBron will be there too. What do you think? AR going to put together an all-star caliber season, or is there just not enough touches in a 16-minute basketball game?
I don't even know if it's touches. I just think the Western Conference has always been really, 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 really hard to get all-stars into. Like, for example, you think of a CJ McCollum when he was Damian Lillard's cohort in all those years, averaging like 23 to 25 points per game, couldn't make it. Mike Conley only has 1 all-star appearance outside of being a guard in Memphis for a long. It's hard at the guard position because you're going to get legacy players like Steph Curry who will never let it go. Chris Paul, this might be the first time that he will let it go, fully. But then you got up and coming young guys who also play those guard positions. Like Anthony Edwards, is he going to be able to beat out guys like that? Do you even think like reserves? It gets tricky in the West. If he was in the East, I think he'd have a much better case, especially this season. But the West has been historically difficult for guards to get positions on the All-Star team. We didn't even think Steph Curry was going to make it last year just because their team wasn't super great, and there's some really, really good guards in the West. So, if
Has
Luka's
Jamal
not
Murray
injured,
been an All-Star?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, had Luka played last year, I don't think Steph Curry makes the roster. It gets difficult when you talk about guards. So Austin, while he could do it, it's going to have to be on the back of the Lakers brand. He's going to need these guys to be pumping in them votes, the fan votes like crazy, because he's not going to get a lot of media love. You know what I'm saying? So he's really going to need somehow to get eked in. But actually, the reserves are all picked by coaches, right?
I believe so, yes.
If that's the case, then he has no hope. Because he won't get fan voted into the starting lineup. No shot. He will not get fan voted into the starting lineup. His only hope is a reserve role. And I'm not sure if, again, they take a percentage of the fan votes or if it's all or if it's just straight coaches and players. I don't know how the voting works these days. I think the All-Star game is very inconsistent, but I find it very, very difficult for him to make the All-Star team in the Western Conference. Now, if he was in the East and he's playing on Brooklyn and he puts up 25 to 27, absolutely, I can see him making one. But the West is hard, bro, and it's historically.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this list, man. People you're writing in stone, right? Luka's a guard, Steph. I mean, I'm not writing Steph in stone, I guess.
But you got SGA, you got Anthony Edwards.
You got
those are four guards right there.
Bro, that Jalen Williams was an all-star last year.
Yep.
I think you have to respect that he made an appearance. Book is always a guy that should be in consideration. Like we said, Murray. I'm a big De'Aaron Fox guy. I think if he can be healthy, it doesn't sound like he'll be ready for the start of the season down there with the Spurs. But, that's another name. It's tough. That is a tough group, bro.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah. It's just hard. It's just hard. And that's nothing against him. It's just there's too many talented players in the Western Conference, especially the guard position. So it's going to be very difficult for him to get that spot. Very, very difficult. You just think, again, teams just do good. It's going to be hard, I mean, how many All-Star appearances does Zion have? One. He is Ja Morant. He's got to go against too. Ja's back. Ja plays the same position. It's not easy for Austin to get in. It's just not going to be easy for him to get in. So, but does he have talent comparable to some of those players? I would say so, but it's just not going to be enough, unfortunately, because he's a third option. He just won't get enough of a narrative behind him, unfortunately, unless he gets voted
Laker
in.
Nation is strong. We are strong. But them starters is a popularity contest, baby, and there's a lot of popular players in the league, a lot of popular guards out west. So we here for it, AR. I'll say this: if he does, that means the Lakers sitting pretty in the standings. That's for damn sure. So maybe AR in the 3-point contest this year because I can see that's the way he does it, right? If AR really, really, really establishes himself as just a dead-eyed 3-point shooter, yes, I think that there's an option where he gets the Klay Thompson nod and gets in with Steph and Draymond at the same time, right? So we'll see. Not this Klay Thompson.
I'll be honest, I find it very hard to get him in. It's just, if he was in the East, I think he could have a solid chance, but the West, there's just too much talent. And all the young stars are basically in the West, bro. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It gets hard.
Pause.
Shoot, Zach LaVine could get it before him. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Zach and DeMar back in Sacktown. If they put together a decent enough season, both of them would get the nod before AR would. You know what I'm saying? It gets tough in the West.
That's sad. I feel for
there's still James Harden in the West,
Yeah, I feel for Austin. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Late Night Lake Show.